Hello, everyone. Aviva here. I wanted to quickly give you a heads up, just a little backstory that we had some technical difficulties while filming this episode. However, I think I was able to salvage most of the footage and the editing just might be a little choppier than ideal. So I just wanted to give you that information, that context. However, most of it's in here and it was a great chat, and I think you all are going to learn so much and get a lot out of it. So without further ado, enjoy the show. Hi, you're listening to When Isabel Met Aviva, a podcast about rom-coms, female-driven screenwriting, and breaking into the entertainment industry. I'm Aviva.
And I'm Isabel.
And thanks for tuning in into another episode. It's been a little bit. What have you been up to lately, Isabel?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I was traveling for a while. I went to Seattle. I went to Arizona. I went to France. And now I'm back. Really kind of just want to chill for the summer. But I have a lot of friends coming to visit in a few weeks. I'm going camping this week and next weekend. So got a lot of just kind of enjoying the summer right now, but I've been writing a lot too. I can't really give too much information, but I'm working on another spec script that I'm excited about. And I don't know, it's different. It's not a rom-com. It's more of like a fantasy kids movie.
So fun.
But yeah, so it's been fun to just kind of be in a totally different genre and a totally different kind of character voices, I guess I'll say.
Yeah. We can't really, I know what you're talking about, but congrats for the project. Will be really, really vague. But yeah, that's really cool. I love that like fantasy subgenre as well. Like like movies like Enchanted, Elf, and those that's a genre I really feel attracted to as well.
Something I learned after writing the Christmas movie I worked on, I feel like I realized that I do really like fantasy. It's kind of like, I don't know what the word to describe this is. It's sort of I really love the little jokes of like a fantasy thing, but like in the human world, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like I watched that Unfrosted movie and I thought it was not very good, but I really enjoyed all the little jokes about like, I don't know, the serial characters sort of like having like being like union workers. Like there was a lot of fun.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never saw that, but I saw the first like 5 minutes. I'm a Seinfeld.
I only watched it. It's like a watch it while you're folding laundry type of movie.
Sad, but yeah, no, I also really feel attracted to that genre, and have written a few projects like that as well, just for myself. In which
you been writing
fictional characters come, into the real world. Yes, I have been writing. I am still working on the script for my producers. Like I think I can share this. Like I thought we were done, but there's more. So done being like, I thought the draft we had was kind of done, but we got some really good notes from someone I really admire. And so I've done a couple more drafts of that. So definitely the most drafts I've ever done for a project, but hopefully that means it's the best one. So I've been working on that. And then I've written Act 1 of my script for my screenwriting fellowship, the one through the Northwest Screenwriters Guild. Like I've been doing that for the past like 6 months. Awesome. So I've finally been writing that, and that's been really fun to finally type pages. Like, I just haven't opened final draft in a long time, besides like the revisions I was doing for the other project. And then, I'm like outlining I'm at the very beginning stages of another rom-com. I have an idea, but it's not, it's just like a 1-pager right now. So I've been trying to write, definitely more in a writing phase than last time, I guess, when we talked about this.
I know. I was actually reflecting on that. I feel like at the end of March, I want to say, I kind of really fell off of writing, and I just didn't write. I like literally hadn't written anything since then, really, until a few weeks ago. And all of a sudden, it's like the creative burst has just come back. Yay. And I am just like, okay, I need to finish this draft. And then I have like to do a new draft of my Indian rom-com, and then I have another rom-com that I've been working on about. It's kind of like about my friends, like actual dating life. But I feel like there's like I don't know, I just had like so many ideas that I was like, I really want to just sit down and write this because it would be so cute.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, this is a good reminder to myself and probably to you as well that like when it feels like we're not inspired and that like nothing's coming, like it comes in like waves. Like the creativity always does come back, even though it feels like it won't. Like every time I'm in that rut, I'm like, I'm never gonna think of an idea I like again, and then it always does happen. So
sometimes that is just part of the journey, right? It's like you kind of just have to live and like let things happen, and then without even realizing it, it might just hit you one day where you're like, oh, but like that whole time, like all these ideas were sort of just forming in the background.
Yeah, definitely. So good reminder to self, but even when you're going through it, it's just hard to see the hope of creativity again. But
oh, we were talking to you before we started recording that I think we wanted to say to our audience is just like to like maintain the hope, because I feel like we both, right, it sounds like had some interactions within the industry in the past week or so where I was recently at the Hollywood Climate Summit here in Los Angeles, which is like a film summit on climate change and sustainability in film. It was really cool to hear like studios trying to be more sustainable on set and just like having more composting and not letting food go to waste, donating food, and then also in storytelling, trying to tell stories from, you know, voices and people who want to protect our world and our earth. But some things that came out of that was just hearing people say that like the industry is just really slow right now. Like it's, if you're feeling it, like it's totally normal. Don't feel like it's any reflection on you. They were saying that the motto in the industry right now seems to be survive until 2025. And just that, like they think that things are going to start to pick up again in 2025. But right now things are just, people aren't buying things. It's really slow to get any conversations going. So we were kind of just discussing that it does feel like, you know, let's spend the next 6 months just writing and polishing things and getting things, you know, really ready to go, so that by 2025 you have like a solid, you know, 3 scripts or so that are ready.
I definitely things have felt slow for sure, but yeah, hopefully 2025 or sooner. Well, but now I think that's a good strategy, just focusing on, you know, building your portfolio and having hope that more rom-coms are going to sell soon, because they say we're in the Renaissance, but then I'm like, where are all the rom-coms being made? I mean, that's another thing to quickly talk about. Just like, I don't feel like there are many coming out this summer, like shows, movies.
Hello, today, I don't know when we're going to air this, but on Friday, June 28th, A Family Affair, Zac Efron's new rom-com is out. I'm very excited to watch it.
Me too. I will definitely watch that.
Seems great. Nicole Kidman. I think I don't know. I feel like when I first saw that trailer, I was kind of like, I don't know about this, but I don't know if it's the power of marketing or what, but like I suddenly feel like I've seen so many clips from it now that it actually looks really funny. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'll definitely see that. I just think generally, you can correct me and the audience can correct me, I feel like last summer there were just a lot more, like The Summer I Turned Pretty was coming back, like just more romantic shows and movies. They felt more, there were just more last summer, it felt like. But let us know, guys, if we're missing anything, any releases. I will definitely see A Family Affair. Yeah. But I just also want to talk about who we are speaking with today.
Yeah.
We should film like our own episode soon too. I feel like we have a lot to say.
I have a lot to catch up on.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, we are speaking to a writer and a screenwriter and director, Emily Ting. And this, the way that this came together is really sweet, because I think she followed me on Twitter. I looked her up on IMDb and I realized that I'd seen her film when it came out. It's already tomorrow in Hong Kong. And I remember really loving it.
I really like that title.
Yeah. And I think that's one of her first films that made a splash, at least. And it was just cool to connect with someone whose work I just had already seen and really connected with a long time ago. So anyway, she said that she loved our show, and
that's so fun.
And she said, like, the magic of Twitter, right? Or X or whatever. And she said she loved our show and loves rom-coms and would love to be a guest if we ever wanted her on the show. So
now she manifested being on our show. She's on our show.
So yeah, let's chat with Emily about her film and rom-com and being. Oh, she also directed Tall Girl 2.
Oh yeah,
I saw that. And some other bigger projects, Hallmark. So she's on the streamer, she's on TV, and now she's on our show. So let's chat with her. Emily, thank you so much for chatting with us today. We're really excited. And I was sharing in the intro that I'd seen your work years ago. So it was exciting to connect with you kind of randomly on Twitter.
Yeah,
I love all those connections.
I asked to be on this podcast because I love your podcast. I came across it recently because Aviva was posting on the Hallmark like Facebook group.
I love that.
A bunch. I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to come on. So I was solicited to be on here. So thank you for having me.
No, I see it as that you manifested it. And we were talking before, she was telling me about like how she connected with you. And I was like, oh, this is so fun. This is like you manifested being on our podcast and now you're here. And I'm like so here for that. Mm-hmm. Just in case anyone isn't watching the video, I do want to shout out again that she's got her posters behind her from a couple things that she wrote. So, or you directed Tall Girl 2, right?
Yeah, I directed Tall Girl 2, but did Already Tomorrow in Hong Kong. There are actually more posters behind me. It's just the framing only shows.
Oh, okay. I just think it's so cool. We always love when like some of the writers we bring on have their posters, and like that's definitely a goal for Aviva and I, that we both want to have posters someday of our own movies. So just think that's so cool.
Could you talk to us about, just your background and how you got started in filmmaking and writing and directing?
Yeah. So what I love the most about your podcast is everyone's story is so different and they have such a journey. So how I kind of got started, I think I realized in high school that I wanted to pursue film. I was the entertainment editor of my high school newspaper. So I would write like film reviews.
Oh, cool.
With the school paper. And then I was like, you know what? I would love to tell my own stories. So that was something that I sort of actively pursued. And then I applied to film school. And I had gotten into NYU Film School, which at the time and even now is still a very prestigious film school. And I was really excited. And I thought, my parents would be very excited for me. So this is kind of like where my life kind of took a turn. So I had gotten into NYU Film School. My mom was very happy, ecstatic, supportive. My dad, they've been divorced for a long time. I was living with my mom, and then my dad was living in Hong Kong. I thought he would be very happy for me, but he completely flipped out on me and it was sort of like the beginning of this rift between us that like never quite healed. He was very upset. He wanted me to go into like business school because he has a business and he wanted me to take over someday. And he's been drilling that into me since I was a child, but to me that felt like a very antiquated notion that like you have to take over your family's business. So I never really took it seriously, like that was something that he was actually going to make me do. But when like I got into film school and I kind of declared I want to become a filmmaker, then he was like, no, I want you to take over. Like that's never going to happen. Like you cannot become a filmmaker. Like, so it was this whole big thing. But in the end, he did let me go to film school, like, because NYU was still a really good school, like, and he ended up paying for college, which I'm very appreciative of. So I thought, okay, maybe dad accepted. He let me go to film school, and that's going to be my path. And then a couple of years after graduating from film school, at the time I was working in New York in film distribution. And then a couple of years since graduation, he kind of came collecting and was like, okay, I paid for school. I let you have 2 years of fun. Now you gotta like come and take over the family business. And I was like, really? Like, this is still a thing. So I was like in my early 20s at the time. And I thought, there's just no getting around it. Like, let me just go do this thing. Let me go to Hong Kong and work for the family business. And I told myself, I'll just do it for a year and I could appease my dad. And then I could come back to New York and like pursue filmmaking. So I went to Hong Kong and like worked for the family business. And 1 year kind of turned into a whole decade. Like I ended up in Hong Kong for like all of my 20s and working for the company. And I think this is where like you think your life is going to turn out one way and then it doesn't. Like I went to Hong Kong like sure that I was only going to like do it for 1 year and come back. But then things happen. Like, the job wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I met someone there. Like, things in life happened and I ended up spending all of my 20s in Hong Kong and working for the family business. And it wasn't until sort of like it was like a couple weeks before I turned 30 that I kind of looked back on my life and I was like, oh my God, like I've been living my dad's life and not mine. And even though I hadn't touched filmmaking for a decade, the spark hasn't gone out. And I was like, that's what I studied. That's what I wanted to do. And I felt like my dad kind of just hijacked my life and was like, no, you're to take over my company. So, and I remember at the time I was very depressed and I was seeing a therapist, and my first session with her, she was like, okay, if you could do anything you want in your life, what would it be? Like, if you don't have to care about what your dad was thinking or whatnot. And I was like, there's no point, like there's no point thinking about something that's impossible. She's like, no, just what would it be? And I just blurted out and I was like, well, if I could do anything, I would live in Los Angeles and make movies, but it's impossible. So why even bother thinking of it? She's like, why is it impossible? And that kind of got me thinking. I'm like, why is it impossible? And I put all these restrictions on my own dreams. So that kind of like lit a new fire under me. And I went to my dad and I kind of worked something out where I'm like, no, I want to move to LA and I want to pursue film because this is what I studied. That's what I wanted to do. And we actually worked out an agreement where I would still kind of work for the company, but remotely in LA because, I still need a job. I still need a paycheck, but like I could go to LA and try to make something out of a filmmaking career. So it was kind of like the best of both worlds. And he was actually very understanding, which made me think like I could have probably done this earlier, but I was so afraid that I kind of accepted this is my new life. So then I came to LA in, when I turned 30, and then I kind of started by dabbling in indie films. So I started like producing my friends' micro budget indie films as a way to kind of relearn the whole filmmaking process, because I had been out of it for like 10 years at that point. And then the indie films sort of led to my studio films. So, I had the first movie I did was this micro budget film called The Kitchen. And it was a movie that I produced. It was all in one location and it was made for like under $100,000. And my buddy from film school was the director, and he found this script that was very contained that we could all do very cheaply. But that movie, even though it was such a low budget, we were miraculously able to put together a really good cast. We had Laura Prepon, Brian Greenberg, like Amber Stevens, like Dreama Walker, like an amazing cast for that low budget. And then through that movie, I met Brian Greenberg. And it was at the LA premiere of The Kitchen. He was like, okay, Emily, what are you working on? And I was like, oh, I actually wrote a script recently. It's this two-hander. It takes place in Hong Kong. And, it would be like an Asian American woman with a white guy. And he's like, oh, do you know my girlfriend, Jamie Chung? I was like, what? You're like, at the time, I didn't even know if they were like public yet with their relationship. And Jamie was like, like my number one choice for the role. But to me, it felt like such an impossible get. And Brian Greenberg at this party was just like, oh, give me the script. I'll send it to Jamie. And that's what happened. I emailed him the script and I said, well, obviously there is a male lead role. So if you like the script, you could do it together. And that's what I sent him the script. And then 2 weeks later, he wrote back. He's like, me and Jamie read it. We're in. We love it. And it was like, and
That's
people were
amazing.
like, it's like you never saw your dream cast like on the first go, and they read it in 2 weeks, and people were like, that's super fast, because most of these actors sit on the script for months and then pass. So that all happened really quickly, and then I was able to get that movie made in Hong Kong. So that was my first sort of writing and directing. And through that movie, I was able to get my manager and my first agents at Gersh. They had seen the movie and they signed me. And I thought, golden, like, it's been so easy. I produced a couple indies, I directed an indie, and now I'm getting, I'm ready for Hollywood. But the years after Already Tomorrow in Hong Kong, like, pretty much nothing happened. I got my reps and they sent me out on a lot of general meetings, which is what everybody does when they first sign with their reps. But I didn't sell anything. I didn't get hired on any directing for hire jobs. So through Already Tomorrow in Hong Kong, I was able to get my manager and my first agents at Gersh, and they had sent me out on a lot of general meetings. And I was meeting like amazing people and amazing companies, but none of those was leading to any actual work. But I mean, that's the type of thing you need to do. So by this point, a few years, like 2 or 3 years have gone by since Already Tomorrow in Hong Kong came out. And I just felt like nothing was really happening. And if I want momentum, I need to make another film. So that was sort of, we were very lucky with Already Tomorrow in Hong Kong that we were able to, make our money back and make a small profit on that movie, so that we were able to roll the money we spent on Already Tomorrow in Hong Kong into a second indie film. So that was how Go Back to China came along. And that movie got into South by. So,
cool.
So once again, it got into competition at South by. And so that's the new momentum. And I've been, kind of unhappy with my agents at Gersh for a while. Would have signed me, but having a second indie film get into competition at South by, my manager was like, now's your chance. You don't need them anymore, because you're going to have new momentum and you're going to have new reps coming wanting to sign you. Them before the South by announcement came out. And then once the South by announcement came out, then I had agents and, coming like, oh, does she have representation and such? So, and then that was what led to my current reps at Verve. So, to me, that's always the number one question people ask, like, oh, how did you get your representation? And the thing is, there are different ways to go about it. I've been pretty lucky in that I went the indie film way, but I did have to get 2 indie films made on my own in order to get both sets of reps. And once I signed with Verve, it was a world of difference. I feel like once you're with the right person, you realize your ex was like a terrible person.
Yeah.
And that was what it was. I signed with Verve, and right away they were sending me scripts like, hey, these are the open directing assignments out on the town. Which ones do you spark to? If you like anything, we will pitch you on your behalf. And I never kind of got that with my first set of agents, where I just, again, they were lovely in terms of sending me out to generals, but I was not really getting ODA assignments. So from then on, I Verve was sending me out on a ton of pitches. I was just constantly pitching on open directing assignments, and and they were like, it's a numbers game. The more you go out to pitch, eventually you're going to land something. And that was what happened with Tall Girl 2. And that happened, and that happened in the middle of COVID. That happened in October 2020. And at the time I was like, great, I finally got my new reps, and then the industry shut down, and we're never, it was such gloom and doom. You think we're never going to go back on a movie set. So that movie kind of happened at at a time where we all thought like, oh, game over, it's done, COVID. So it was such a gift. And I think once I got Tall Girl 2, and the Tall Girl 2 really had nothing to do with Hallmark, but they kind of happened at the same time. So shortly after I booked Tall Girl 2, separately, I've been writing with a writing partner for like years, and we've been writing rom-coms. And at the beginning of 2020, and this was before COVID, we were like, we like to write at least one spec a year. And, and that's like our side gig. So it takes us a long time because we write on nights and weekends whenever we feel like it. So we're like, you know what? We were talking about Christmas, what we did, and we both like, just had Chinese food. And we were like, that's what a lot of people do on Christmas. They get Chinese food, but I've never seen, like the Christmas movie set in a Chinese restaurant. And we were like, great, let's write that. And it wasn't like we were trying to get into Hallmark. It wasn't like a strategic thing, like, let's write a Christmas movie. We literally just was talking, it was January, we were talking about Christmas, and we decided to write this movie. And we finished Christmas at the Golden Dragon at the end of 2020, like December 20. Like, it took us so long because also COVID happened. It just was not like, it was like in the back burner. We will work on it here and there whenever we have time. We finished it at the end of 2020. And then I think my manager sent it out like in the new year in 2021. And I think by that spring, I want to say maybe March or April, Timeless Pictures decided to not quite option it, but they wanted to shop it around. So they like took it out. And Timeless Pictures is a production company that does a lot of these like movies of the week for like Hallmark. But they did take that script out to a lot of like different companies, and the Hallmark ended up optioning it. And so in 2021, I, at the same time directed my first studio movie, Tall Girl 2, and sold my first script to Hallmark. And that was so cool. Sort of like the beginning of everything else that happened since. But, it seems like overnight, like, oh my God, it all happened in the same time. But then as you heard, it took many, many years of, getting to that point. So,
yeah. That's awesome. That's really, really cool.
So sorry, that was a very long-winded.
No, it's been a journey.
Yeah, no, I mean, just like your whole story, I could really relate to. I mean, it's like the whole like first hurdle, right, of just overcoming like I have an Indian father who like very much expected me to be a doctor. And I am the only not like doctor, not medical field person in my family. So I can totally relate to like overcoming that like just internal struggle, right, of like identity and like what am I going to do with my life? And like, am I just going to live what my parents want for me? But I do think that a lot of that like 10-year journey that you went through, right, kind of led to some stories and to some writing and creativity that you're now like.
I think looking back, it's interesting. I feel like if I had never gone to Hong Kong, I probably wouldn't even be a filmmaker today. I might have become like a studio executive, because that was like kind of the route I was working in like corporate Hollywood. Not like, being creative. And it took me going to Hong Kong to come up with these ideas, right? The 2 indies I wrote were all based on my experience.
Right, exactly.
And then that led me. So I often think, and this is what I tell a lot of like young filmmakers who they're starting out. It's like, allow yourself to go on a journey that you didn't maybe expect for yourself. Like, not every route has to be like, come out of film school, become a PA, and then work my way up. Like, sometimes you may have to like take a tangent, but that it might eventually lead you back to where you were supposed to be all along. And that's like kind of how I feel. Like, I took this tangent like around the like detour, like halfway around the world, and then but still ended back where this is exactly, like when I was turning 30, what I wanted to do and I thought was like impossible. And now I'm like doing it. So yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, no, it's it shows that just life experiences and detours really do influence our creativity and our life paths. And yeah, that's really important for us to remember.
And so now are you writing more? So you directed Tall Girl 2. I'm kind of curious like how that came about, or do you see yourself always being like a writer, producer, director, or is there one or the other that you kind of like enjoy more, lean more towards?
I have done all three. I've been a producer. I was a producer first, and then I was a writer director, and then I've been a director for hire and a writer. Okay. And I would say probably I probably have left the indie film world behind. I mean, you never know. Like that's always going to be my first love, and I think like the two indies that I wrote and directed, they're like my babies. And then like the ones that you write but someone else directs feels like you had a baby and then you gave it up to someone else. And when you write someone else's script, it's like, okay, I'm a stepmom. Like someone else wrote the script, but I raised it, you know? So it's a little different. I will always love, I think like looking back, the two best experiences were A Return in Hong Kong and Go Back to China, because that was like all me. But then the reality is, you know, like those are not sustainable. The fact that I got out of those two movies alive, you know, like is a miracle, because most people don't make money on indie films and, you know, they could lose their life savings. So I was very lucky in that. And now like I'm kind of pursuing both. Like I'm still pitching on open directing assignments. So anything that like the studios, you know, they already like the story and they already like the script and they just need a director. So I still go in and pitch on those. But then separately, I feel like Hallmark has been such a godsend during these like lean times. Because, you know, obviously you guys know we had the strikes last year and the Great Contraction. There's just not a lot of productions going on. And I see the difference in terms of the number of scripts that I receive that's looking for directors. And I mainly, you know, like direct rom-coms or teen rom-coms. So it's like those are definitely dwindling. But I'm able to sort of keep busy with these rom-com scripts that I write for Hallmark. Like, even though a lot of my friends who are just like, like there's no work, I'm just sitting around like feeling anxious. Like, like the directing stuff has been pretty slow in the last couple of years, but I've been able to kind of like channel my creativity in writing. And, you know, and everything I've sold to Hallmark so far has been written on spec. So like I just write it, and the correct way to do this is you pitch something and then they come back to you. They're like, well, I'll write the pitch and pay you to write the script. I tried that, but it takes such a long time for them to, you know, even read the pitch and get back to you that I'm like, honestly, I could just write a script in the time. So why do I just write since I have the time right now? And I've had pretty good track record. Like I write something and then I send it to Timeless Pictures, who's my producer. They will say yay or nay. And then the ones that they like, they've had really good track record so far in terms of getting them set up at Hallmark. Because, you know, like I'm on Twitter, I see you, Aviva, I see a lot of writers. You take the time, you write, and then afterwards it's like, who's going to read it? You know, like that's always a big hurdle and a challenge. And I feel like I've gotten really lucky in that if I have an idea, I could pitch it to Timeless. Like, hey, I have these ideas. Which ones do you think? Like they could guide me. Like, oh yeah, this one sounds like it could be good for Hallmark or whatnot. And I just go and write it. And I write it on spec. And then when it's done, you know, I mean, that doesn't always pan out because sometimes I'll write a whole script and they're like, not into it. But you know, that's the kind of risk you take with specs. But you know, but I'm always a proponent of writing your spec. If you have the time, just go ahead and write it. That has a better chance of getting sold than, you know, like a pitch doc.
So, you know, I'm sure you get asked this a lot. So like, is your advice for those who don't have that connection with, you know, Timeless or another company, just to keep, like, what is your advice for getting it in the right hands? Just continue to make stuff?
Yeah. So I was able to get to timeless pictures through my manager. So
Yeah.
they had a personal connection. I think they had gone to college together. So it was honestly, my manager just like slipped Christmas at the Golden Dragon to Alex at Timeless, like I think at a mutual friend's birthday party. It's like, oh, but
Wow.
like it was not as like,
That's awesome.
you're in Christmas movies. My client just wrote a Christmas movie. Might you want to like read it? And he just like texted to him like on his phone. Obviously, you know, like personal connections, but I did. It wasn't. But Alex was not someone I knew personally. It was someone that my manager knew personally. So obviously, getting the reps helps. But I also think, you know, like if you know people who have sold things in a similar space, like friends of yours, like I have put up my friends, like since I got into Hallmark, I've had friends reach out like, hey, I have a Christmas idea, like, and I'd be happy to like send them through. You know, I was like, no guarantee, but I'll at least send them to my contact at my producer, and if he likes it, I'll put you two in touch.
Yeah,
you know, so
Yeah.
So I do think that, you know, that personal connection definitely helps. And obviously, once you have reps, it is easier because it's their job to know these people, like who to connect. And that's why a lot of people are like, well, how do I get that first step? How do I get reps? And in my journey, it's just if you could get your own films made and get noticed that way, because I've done it through the indie film. And look, it's very expensive and takes a lot of effort to get a feature made. But even if you could get like a short made, if you could get into a Sundance or go viral on YouTube, you know, like there are different ways to get attention. Like I've never done it through the cold inquiry way, like, and I've been lucky that I haven't had to, but I know, you know, there have been writers who have had success with that. And I get cold inquiry sometimes from writers who, even though I'm not really producing anymore, but I do technically have a production company. Most of them I file away, but if the idea is really interesting, I think it all comes down to your log line. Like I will get in touch and be like, hey, this is interesting, but I'm also very upfront in that, like, I'm not really like producing movies anymore, but sometimes if it's a really good idea that I think, you know, Hallmark might like, I might like send it through to Alex. Like this just came in my inbox. I don't know this person, but it sounds like an interesting idea. So occasionally, like the full inquiry, if it's a really cool idea, could still potentially at least, you know, get you read. And Aviva, I feel like you have so many cool ideas because I see you on Twitter, like posting a lot of them.
Thank you. I'm curious just what you think. You know, there's an event on Twitter every so often through Screen Pit, which is, you know, just was created during the pandemic. And you share your log lines in hopes of getting attention. It's, you know, it's also just a fun like show and tell with like your screenwriting peers. But I'd be curious, like, sometimes I wonder, oh, like, should I be sharing my log lines? You know, that sort of thing, because there's controversy.
Honestly, works for you because you are very like I'm a lurker on Twitter. I don't tweet, but I do. I like the screenwriting community. I just kind of don't tweet myself. Yeah, like you shared a lot of your log lines, I feel like, on your Twitter. Like, have you gotten any like requests off of that?
Yeah, not really through that event. But I do think being loud about my ideas, at least during the pandemic, was the reason my producer found me. I was just like,
that's true,
so it did work. And I didn't sell a specific script that I was trying to sell, but she did find me probably because I was really public about everything and my cover fly. So yeah, no, but I haven't. I think I got a few read requests a couple of years, like when the height of like the pandemic on Twitter, but not in recent times. It's more just to connect with screenwriting friends these days, it feels like. But
I think it doesn't hurt. I think obviously the con is like, well, what if someone steals my idea?
Right.
But then I feel like you're also putting like, isn't that kind of proof that like you were developing this?
Yeah,
you know, if someone else steals it. Like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's more of like a lawyer or manager type question. Like,
Yeah,
should we, like,
no worries.
like, I feel like if I saw someone else's log line, that I can't imagine anyone, like, if you want to steal it, like, but like that person already tweeted out that they have a script of this log line. Like, wouldn't that just
it'd be so obvious that you took it and then like
stole this idea?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm mostly on the side of I'm not that worried about it being stolen at this point. Yeah.
About execution too, right? Like,
yes.
I think a lot of writers are so precious about their ideas. It's like, sure, a good idea is like amazing, but a lot of people could come up with good ideas. But how do you turn that idea into a script? Like, that is the craft.
Right.
So
100%.
yeah. I say keep doing what you're doing. I actually think like it's so brave and so cool of you guys, and there's so much creativity. And I read some of these log lines and I'm like, why isn't this a movie? Why isn't this a movie? Like, there's so many great ideas out there.
I agree.
It's so true. Yeah.
I had a question just about the rom-com and why you feel drawn to it, and it seems like that's what you generally like to write.
Yeah, I mean, even back in film school, I remember all the like film bros. You know, they're like into Scorsese and Ingmar Bergman, and I was like, oh, I just really love Nora Ephron. Like, I felt so uncool. Like, even back then, I literally just wanted to like go to film school and make rom-coms like Nora Ephron. I mean, this is gonna reveal my age, but like in the late. Like, I graduated college in 2001. So I went to college in like the late 90s. Like, it was the boom of like the 90s rom-com and the early 2000 rom-coms. Like, during that time, big rom-coms were made with like, you know, Julia Roberts and Meg Ryan, Kate Hudson. Like, that was a viable kind of career path. And also, I just love those movies. But then, like, I feel like once I got back to LA in like the 2010s, rom-coms sort of like fell out of fashion. And I remember I would do these general meetings and I was like, oh, I'm really into rom-coms. And all the executives are like, well, they're not being made. So that was like also kind of like streaming rom-coms. There was this like dead period. So I would say like, I've always loved rom-coms as like a viewer. And that was the reason I wanted to become a filmmaker, because I wanted to be the next Nora Ephron. So that's just always been in my blood, and maybe that kind of narrows kind of the type of projects that I could make. But I also want to say, like, I like movies that are joyful and that are feel good, but they don't necessarily have to be about romantic love. So for me, it's more of like kind of the feeling. Like, I'm just not a very cynical filmmaker, or I don't like to make really depressing movies. Like, go back to China, a lot of people are like, it's a weird movie because it feels like a rom-com, but there's no love story. Because it's like a father-daughter story. Yeah. So it plays very much like a rom-com. They started out hating each other and then they love each other at the end. But, you know, it's familial and it's not romantic love. So I think it's just the type of films that I'm drawn to too. So that's why I like this whole Hallmark world. And I have to say, before I saw Golden Dragon, I don't think I've seen a single Hallmark movie.
Wow.
But now that I'm like writing for Hallmark, like I watched all 40 of their Countdown to Christmas.
His dedication.
Hallmark, I'm gonna learn the Hallmark like brand. And it's such a Saturday night. I'm like, after I put the kids to bed, I'm like, I'm gonna watch my, Saturday night movie of the week on Hallmark.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. What I loved about It's Already Tomorrow in Hong Kong. This is my favorite Isabel and I have talked about this. It's just like, I love wanderlust rom-coms, and I feel like there aren't enough. And that's, I think, why your film like stuck with me for so many years. Like the before sunrise types of films like mean so much to me and are just so special. And I love traveling, and I just love seeing people fall in love in different locations. So I just wanted to say that too. I think there needs to be more of them for sure.
Thank you. Well, where did you see Already Tomorrow?
I think I rented it. It was so many. Yeah, I think would it have been on like Amazon or something? I think I just
like
I think I just saw it at home. And I really like Brian Greenberg, and I like any romantic anything in a different place. So yeah.
Yeah, and Before Sunrise, like that whole trilogy is like just like one of my favorite
Same
films
here.
of all time. So that project honestly just started as like, I want to make a Before Sunset in Hong Kong. And
oh my gosh, I love
and
that.
then people were like, oh, it's a ripoff. I'm like, it's an homage. It's an homage because I love that movie and I want to do a two-hander. And another one is Lost in Translation. That was another one that was like a huge influence on Already Tomorrow in Hong Kong.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was just curious for It's Already Tomorrow in Hong Kong, how long was the shoot? Yeah.
So that was 14 days.
Okay.
And we shot, which is very fast. They're like, oh my God, 14 days. And we only shot like, it was all at night, right? So we would start filming at 6 p.m. And a lot of times we had to wrap by like midnight because all those neon lights in Hong Kong shuts off at midnight. And we, and then we match. So we would, not only was it like 14 days, sometimes we only had 6-hour days. And, and most film productions are like 12 hours, but we don't even have that much nighttime. So it was very quick, but it's a two-hander. It's just two people walking, talking. And that's another advice. It's like for a lot of filmmakers, for your first movie, either make like a one location movie or like a two-hander, because those scenes are just easier to pull off.
Is it hard to get somebody to read a first, like I don't know, I'm kind of curious, like, I mean, it sounds like you had Brian read it, right? But like, I always wonder if when somebody starts to see this first script from somebody that they don't know and it's just like mostly dialogue and just two people, like, is that, I don't know, I'd be worried that would be like a instant turn off to some, but maybe just to the wrong person.
Maybe, yeah, because the walk and talk, that's like my favorite trope.
Yeah, so me too. I love dialogue movies. That's why I'm like, I have a movie like that, but I've been so afraid to like give it to people because I'm like, it's literally just all dialogue. It's just people talking and it's two characters, but I've been like shy about it because,
No, I mean, yeah, you have to find the right audience, right? Like if someone sent me a two-hander, I'd be like, gold. I don't have to read the I love writing just two people talking and then like reading them. But if someone is not into that type of film, then maybe not. So for Brian, I don't even know if he realized I was just like a two-hander the whole way through. He might have just like realized as he was reading it. But this is really interesting. He told me him and Jamie read it out loud to each other. So they didn't just like read it separately. They just were like, she wants us to be in it. And because it's all dialogue, it might have been a very like, it might have flowed very well because it was just the two of them being the whole time. So yeah, I don't know. But I was like, oh, that's so cute. You guys acted out the movie together.
That is really cute. I feel like that's a movie in itself. If they hadn't been dating it already and they just like fell in love while reading the script to each other. I love that. Okay, so let's maybe move into the kind of like at the end. Well, you probably know this, Emily, since you've listened to our podcast. We still don't have a name for this. I feel like, I don't know. I kind of like calling it the airport chase scene because that's how it's played out in my mind, is like we're rapid fire questions, like we're on the run to at the end of the movie. So we're just going to ask you some quick questions, starting with, what is your favorite rom-com and why?
Oh, so my favorite rom-com of all time is When Harry Met Sally. And that is like such a comfort watch for me. I think when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I discovered like a VHS copy of it in my house. And like that was just on a loop like all the time. And the writing, the dialogue is just so good. And also I feel like I really love the kind of like the friends to lovers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Trope. like that to me, like fall in love with your best friend is like the most romantic thing that could happen. So for me, that's like my all-time favorite rom-com.
Do you have a favorite outfit from a rom-com that comes to mind?
Yes. So I think the most iconic outfit is like Julia Roberts' dress in Pretty Woman.
Yeah.
And then like in the movie that I just directed, I was like, I need that Cinderella dress moment. Like like Julia Roberts from Pretty Woman. So like I reference it. And I love it when you have that kind of reveal. And then basically I feel like anything Cher wore in Clueless is like just
yes.
And also Sex and the City, like Sarah Jessica Parker. It's like I can't pinpoint one specific outfit because everything they wore.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Do you have a favorite line from a rom-com that you love to quote or that just has stuck with you?
So it's probably Billy Crystal's line in Harriman Sally. Like when you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with someone, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible.
I love
and
that.
I might have even used variations of that line in anytime I write a proposal. I love that sentiment. It just feels so romantic to me.
It's really beautiful. Yeah, if you could make anything next, what would it be if you had just unlimited funds?
Like something that I'm like realistically attached to, or like a dream
that you would want to do it like as a dream, like you have all the money in the world, your dream cast, like what's the movie?
I would want to make sort of like the next big Asian American rom-com in the vein of Crazy Rich Asians.
Yeah.
And I mean, since that movie, I've been attached to like a couple like Asian American films. But you would think you like in their rom-coms, and you would think like, oh, after that success, it's so easy to get those made. And it's still hard because, I feel like Hollywood sees success like that as an anomaly versus the rule. And it's still hard. Like I love my teen rom-coms. I've done 2 teen rom-coms now, but I would love to do another like Asian American themed with like a big ensemble Asian American cast, because that's still where like my passion is, but in a very, not like a little indie film, but in like a big, like broad studio rom-com.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. You already answered this question kind of before, but your favorite rom-com trope, we were talking about the walk and talk. Would that be your favorite rom-com trope?
Yes. So it's definitely the walk and talk, and like any sort of like bantering kind of between, like
I love
like
banter.
Like banter, walk and talk. I don't really like the really boring walk and talk. I feel like in a lot of Hallmark movies, the whole movie is just like very slow paced. But I love like bantering, like walk and talk. It's like have that sort of like energy.
Yeah, that's a great one, and one we haven't really talked about before on the show. That is kind of a trope, I guess.
I know.
Yeah, but it is.
We've talked. Someone else mentioned that recently because it made me realize that I think that's my favorite trope too to write. Is like I love a good random banter that kind of has nothing to do with the movie, but it shows a little bit more of the character, right? But it's like it's just so fun, and if it is like a really funny like conversation, it just like that's like my favorite kind of thing in a movie.
Yeah, no, it's really good. So do you want to just to wrap it up, tell us what's on the horizon for you, and how we can track what you've been up to or you're going to be up to?
In romance back in 2022 called Girl Haunts Boy with Peyton List and Michael Cimino. That one is finally going to come out in October of this year on Netflix.
Ooh.
So we had a little bit of, it was commissioned by HBO Max back in 2022. They went through some management issues. We found a new home, and now it's going to come out on Netflix in October. So I'm very excited about that. And then I think I just sold a new spec to Hallmark, but that's earmarked for 2025. Okay. So I don't think I have anything. I worked on something for them for Christmas 2024, but it was like a rewrite situation. So I don't know if I'm going to get credited or not. But that one was very fun to work on. But other than that, I'm like pitching on more kind of open directing assignments and just like coming up with new Christmas ideas. You got to feed that Hallmark beast. They sell on. I'm hoping to write another Christmas spec. Like I wrote at least 3 this year. So right now I'm like going over ideas with my producer, just be like, which ones do you think are good? And I'm like, I'm willing to write one on spec because I really enjoy writing. And if I could, I would just write Christmas movies all day.
No, that's okay.
Cool. And do you want to publicize your website or any links, any social media?
Most active on Instagram. So you could find me. I think I'm Emily Ting 917. So that's where I post the most. But lately it's mostly pictures of my kids. Girl Homes Boy Press in the fall. Sure, I'll be sharing a lot more like photos and that kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. This was really great.
It was really nice to connect. And yeah, I feel like I have so many more questions for you.
I know, yeah.
Information, so feel free to reach out anytime.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Emily. And we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. This has been an episode of When Isabel Met Aviva. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to stay up to date with our episodes, please subscribe. Bonus points if you leave us a positive review. You can follow us on Instagram at When Isabel Met Aviva and on Twitter/X, Isabel Met Aviva. We're both on Instagram and Aviva is on Twitter if you have any questions or need advice about your screenwriting career, or if you just want to obsess over rom-coms with us.
Yeah, thanks so much for listening. And we will be back soon, guys. We don't know our schedule right now, but we are not giving up on the podcast. It's going to be a little more all over the place for the time being.
Yeah.
But we have big hopes and dreams.
Still listening.
Yes. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.